Howdy, folks. After I did a little Kool-Aid gummy taste test, I got asked a question by Seabear TV, but it never showed up on the thing. It showed up on my phone. I was able to read the question, but it never showed up in my YouTube. I don't know if YouTube blocked it and I can't find it, or if she decided she didn't want to ask the question anymore, so she deleted it. Whatever, I'm going to answer it anyhow, because I figured this is a great chance to do a little taste test. I know what I'm going to be tasting. It's Kool-Aid. I know what Kool-Aid tastes like. Answer her question and talk a little bit about Kool-Aid and its history as I learned about it. And we've got this little guy here. He's a Funko Pop. He's from their advertising icons, and I figured, what a great chance to tell my Funko story. I actually have a rich history with Funko. First of all, let's try Tropical Punch. It's fruit punch. It's good. And there's grape. Okay, grape's my favorite Kool-Aid, by far. I'll go get more of that. These are good to pack in the flea market, freeze them. These little juicers, you freeze it, and towards the middle of the day, they've actually melted, and you've got some cold liquid to drink. Because any water, you drink up the water in the morning, it just keeps getting hotter and hotter. So you need frozen stuff too that cools off. That's beside the point. Anyhow, in the history of Kool-Aid, it was a drink concentrate. Someone figured out how to make a powder out of it, and in 1927 it was invented. And just to answer the one question, the original flavor, there were more than one. There was cherry, grape, lemon lime, orange, raspberry, and strawberry. And those were the original flavors in 1927. They've added, if you look on Wiki, there's been apple and root beer, and there's tons. Purple Saurus Rex, whatever, okay. But anyhow, this is a little Funko Pop. It's from their advertising icons set. And yes, I did open them because I open my Pops. So I don't buy Pops. I don't dislike them. I just have a, what would you say? A sour taste towards them, perhaps? Not even that. I like them. I think they're cute. It's just, I was a sales rep for a long time, and I sold to a lot of comic book shops. And what I tended to do was, I had a lot of lines, and every once in a while one would offer a thing that fit into comic shops, and they would buy it. And I'd go around to all the shops, and I was a comic book fan, so I went around to the shops anyhow, even if I had nothing to sell to them. If I was in an area where there was a shop, I'd run in. If I was going to visit a store that was right next to a comic shop, of course I'd go in the comic shop. Well, one of the lines I picked up in the mid-90s was Funko. And I contacted Funko because I saw that Diamond would carry their stuff, but the stores could not. When you buy through Diamond is a distributor, and you buy 2 months in advance, and that's how you're buying your comic books. And then they distribute other stuff. And unfortunately for comic book stores, sourcing out extra stuff like Funko Pops or any other goodies that sell in their store is very hard. They spend 90% of their time just tracking the comics and figuring out which ones to buy, not to overbuy. And the extra stuff is good money, and when they know what sells, but it's like, you'd be offered a Betty Boop bobblehead, you'd order 5 from Diamond, sell out of them in a day, and how do you get more? You can't. because you order only from Diamond. And so I made it my job to go around to companies like Funko and say, I sell to stores and I can make you some money, extra sales. And that's what I did. And I would go around from comic store to comic store selling the original Funko lines. And the original Funko line by Mike was his name. And I knew Mike very well. I talked to him. If you ever watch a Funko documentary, you'll see Mike. He was a cool guy. And I called him up and said, I sell these stores and I'd like to rep your company. He says, what's a rep do? I go, well, I go get you orders. I get you pre-orders. I take a commission, usually 10 or 15. I took 10% from Funko. That's all they could offer. And you don't pay me till you get paid. You ship the orders out, you get paid, and at the end of, and so I was getting a monthly commission check from Funko. And his whole philosophy was he wanted to do unusual licenses, and he did bobbleheads. And there were Count Chocula and Betty Boop. Betty Boop was the most mainstream thing he did. He did Hanna-Barbera characters like Huckleberry Hound. He did Ready Kilowatt, which was an advertising icon that nobody knows anymore, I don't think. A lot of ad icons. And I said, one day I called him up and I was talking to him about new stuff coming. And he had Flintstones or something. I said, that's so cool. Those are going to sell really well. Have you thought of talking to DC? He said, no way. It's not an interest of mine. I'm not going to do DC. I'm not going to do Disney. Nothing like that. I don't want to be mainstream. I'm like, okay, well, we'll keep, we could all make a ton of money if we went DC and Marvel and Disney and all that. We wouldn't do it. He wanted to do things like this Kool-Aid guy that were just odd. And it went for a few years of great sales. I'd call him up every once a month. He'd tell me the new stuff coming out. I'd go to all my stores, tell him what it was. I'd get the orders. I'd replenish their stock. I'd tell them what was sold out, what was going to be sold out, what was going to be discontinued. They could back that stuff up. It was not all just hit and miss from, a distributor. It was great. And then he started putting out kind of a line of stuff that, it was fine. There was nothing wrong with it, but he did he did Ratfink a long time ago, but he did his own version of hot rod art, the Big Bad Wolf, not the Tex Avery, but just a Big Bad Wolf. He did a Bone Daddy type skeleton, a skeleton with a tuxedo, it was all 50s, 60s biker hot rod art. And that's where he wanted to go. He liked it, and it just didn't sell for me. The comic shops didn't want it, and that's where I sold, and the collectors were backing off, and and here's where I really missed a big opportunity. I just stopped paying attention to his line. It just, every time I'd look at it, and it's like, oh, these are little computer toppers, it's a pig. It was just not, I don't know. He was doing okay. He was still selling to his kitsch stores and stuff, but my little more mainstream comic stores, they weren't touching the stuff. So I kind of forgot I repped Funko, and I stopped calling them. And I stopped repping. I got another job. I could have easily kept that line going, had it, but it just was nothing. Turns out, when I let it go, he sold to a friend who then went and got the Disney license, and he got Game of Thrones, and he got Walking Dead, and he got Marvel and DC, and he wasn't making little bobbleheads, he was making these pops. And it wasn't until a couple years later I walked into a store and there was a wall of Funko Pops. It was Maleficent and Spider-Man. And it was just all the stuff that I wanted to sell and could have sold, but it wasn't available to sell. I was like, what happened? He said, well, a guy bought it. I looked into the company too. Guy bought it and he went with licensed stuff. Now, had I stayed with that company, paying attention, even though I wasn't fully a rep anymore, I don't know what could have been. You know, I mean, had I been walking into those stores first with that stuff when who knows? It could have been huge. Or it could have been nothing. He would have fired me. He bought the company. He's a new guy, you know. Go with his own people. Who knows? But it's one of those things when I see Game of Thrones pops and stuff, or Disney pops, I'm like, whatever. I'm not buying it. But that's an original pop to me, or original Funko item, a Kool-Aid man. All right, that's my little story.